introduction. Thank you so much, Jess. Jess, she was being very modest with herself because I love Jess. Like, as far as, I mean, I met her husband too, but I'm just kind of like, you're my friend by default. So thank you, Jess, for being that safe person that I can be my really uncensored self. I mean, she knows, that's it. I'm going the wrong way, hold on. All right, so my ethos is really about all the mistakes that I have made that have gotten me up to this point. I feel like people do a lot of focus on like their successes, which is really cool, but sometimes when I hear other people's successes, it makes me feel like, man, I should be doing more, right? Or I should be a little bit more competitive. But I think it's really our mistakes that make us the amazing people that we are. So that's kind of the theme, is Homer Simpson, getting it wrong, the magic of mistakes. So starting off, I come from a military background. So my dad was in the Air Force, and we moved around a lot. We were in Germany, and pretty much whatever my dad said went. So this kind of started my journey into, I guess, being silenced a little bit. Because during that time, when your parents tell you to do something, that's it. There's no explanation for it. It's just the way it goes. If your dad is in the military, it's really all that goes. Like there's nothing else. You don't ask for any explanation. The whole do as I say, not as I do thing was very impactful. I'll say that in a positive way. My parents, it's okay when your parents aren't perfect, right? I think we all need to realize that. My parents made some decisions that weren't exactly decisions that should be made, to be honest with you. And so there was this contradiction with me when it came to making certain decisions and my parents. So it's like a do as I say, not as I do, whether that be the way you talk to people, the words you use, the negativity you use towards your children. And that kind of started the whole thing as well. An ungrateful child. So what I mean by this is that anytime I asked why, or anytime I wanted something, the reason for that, going to my parents, was always because I was ungrateful, right? So when you ask for something, it's like, well, you're not happy with the things that you have. So there's this narrative with your parents that's always like, I put a roof over your head, clothes on your back, food on the table, but that's what you're supposed to do. So it's like, you didn't ask to be born, right? Your parents are doing what they're supposed to do. And so I think I learned a lot as far as not communicating my needs and just kind of being silent about certain things. Give it to God. The influence of religion it has some good points and it has some bad points. So whenever I was going through something, I grew up as growing into teenagers and that kind of thing. I was a little moody and emotional. And so when I was having these struggles and sleeping all the time, showing signs of depression, my mother would always say, just give it to God, right? Just go to church and all of your problems will be solved. But God also put mental health professionals like just gonna put that, just scoot that on in there. So that basically taught me that there is no such thing as going outside the family for support or for mental health support. You either deal with it, you be grateful, or you go to church. There's no in between. So dependency. I definitely felt like I couldn't make any decisions at all unless my parents approved of it. And so I grew up depending on what they would think if I did something, even when they weren't there, even on into college. And so that definitely led me down a road of seeking validation. 3 brothers, no feelings. Listen, so I don't have any sisters. I didn't have a girl, I had a boy, thank goodness, because I know how to deal with him. You watch a couple of, superhero videos, you're fine. But there was no talking about my feelings as a child or crying or expressing disappointment because I grew up in a family full of testosterone. So it's like whatever happens, I just gotta suck it up and just keep it pushing. FOE, family over everything. So that means whether you wanted to have fun with your friends, you have to check with your family first. Like, does your brother have a basketball game or a football game? You can't go with your friends. You go to your brother's football and basketball game. Whatever happens in the family stays in the family. So if you have a toxic argument, if you get into it with another family member, all of that stays in the family. You don't seek outside support. You don't ask for help, right? So those are the things I kind of learned early on. Escape to an early marriage. I done put his face on there and everything. We're gonna talk about it. It's cool, y'all don't know him, it's fine. So after I graduated from high school, I went to college. I went to Tennessee State University. I had some family challenges before I left and went to college. And then my mom ended up being diagnosed with breast cancer. And so it was very difficult for me to be in that environment, in that atmosphere. So when I went to college, I was like, baby, I'm grown. I could do whatever I wanted to do. So the football quarterback in my high school, he made me feel like really special and stuff. So I basically married the first guy that I fell in love with because it was a small town. We went to elementary school together. We went to high school together. I was the tomboy nerd. He was the athlete. So I fell in love with him, got married. I was 19 years old. I would not recommend. And so it was an out of sight, out of mind type thing, right? I was in Nashville instead of Athens, Tennessee, which is about 3 hours away. I was with my husband. We had our little tiny apartment, and I didn't have to see what was going on in my household. Like, I didn't have to see my mom going through chemotherapy. I didn't have to see, my dad being angry all the time and turning to alcohol. I didn't have to see any of that. It was out of sight, out of mind. Codependency versus love. I mean, I know now because I'm 40. But as a 19-year-old, you don't know the difference. I didn't know the difference. And so basically I started to build this shield that I thought was love, which was actually codependency. So I was depending on him for all of my emotional needs. Everything that I wasn't getting from my family I was seeking in my husband at the time. And filling a void. So I didn't get the support from my family. I didn't get the love and the validation that I was seeking from my family. So I got it from my husband. Well, I thought I did. Left, right, stress. How many of you, besides Kelly, have been in the Army or are a military veteran? None? All right, that's fine. So, to put it bluntly, I joined the Army because I needed college money. So how it happened is that the financial aid department, after my sophomore year in college, said that my parents made too much money for me to receive any additional financial aid. And I was like, I don't know whose finances you're looking at, but we had 0 funds, but that is why I did it. Now, during basic training, the term Army Strong, it didn't exist then, but it existed later, is an understatement. Some of the things that they put you through as far as basic training, staying outside for 3 days, eating MREs, and learning how to shoot rifles and staying up all hours of the night, those are some things that stick with you. And so, again, I'm reverting back to being strong, not asking for help, just powering through it, right? You gotta get through basic training. I actually ended up getting walking pneumonia in basic training, but because I didn't want to do the basic training all over again, because if you went to the infirmary or you went to, get medicine, They'll be like, well, you gotta start over. I'm like, heck no, I'm not doing this again. We're gonna power through. Drink water, drive on. That's like a kind of a statement. Kelly, you know, kind of a statement in the Army where it's like, listen, if something happens, you take a sip of your water, you just keep moving, right? So I also continue to learn that when something affects you, you don't deal with it. You drink water and you keep going. Never leave a fallen comrade. Now this kind of took me back to the family over everything, right? So if somebody else was struggling, even if it's their fault, you don't leave them there, right? You stop whatever you're doing and you come back and you save them. No matter what kind of progress you have made, it doesn't matter because you have to save the people on your team. So that could be a good thing, it could be a bad thing. Push through the pain. They used to punish soldiers in the Army if someone in their platoon did something wrong. So you can do everything right, right? You make your bed, you go to formation, you do all that. You're good, you're thinking you're in the clear. But one of your platoon members didn't make up their bed, right? So while the platoon member is standing here chilling, they'll make the whole platoon do push-ups. So now you see why I hate group projects. But regardless of how much it hurt, how much your arms hurt, how much you didn't want to do it, how much pain you're going through, you just got to push through it because it's a team, right? And then, me, a model? Come on. All right, so we actually moved, me and my husband, moved to Seattle, Washington. He got stationed at Fort Lewis, the Army base. And I had dabbled in modeling before as like a teenager, but I was too much of a tomboy, right? I was like, I'm not wearing no dress. But once I got that first paycheck, I was like, you know what? I might could give this a try a little bit. And so I quickly learned that there's the good, the bad, and the creepy when it comes to modeling. So the good part is I met a lot of other people who were like me, who were, seeking visibility, right? And validation. And there's this whole little community. We talk to each other, we end up being friends, and we end up doing like modeling gigs, bookings, fashion shows together. The bad part is if you have low self-esteem, modeling is not for you. Now they have changed in the past like 20 years. But they will say things to you at a go-see or a booking like, you know what, your look leaves a little too much up to the imagination. We're looking for someone who looks a little bit more ethnic, right? They'll say that, or they'll say, your teeth are crooked, or you have an overbite, or your feet are too big. And that one took me out, y'all. I'm like, I'm 5'10". If I had smaller feet, I'd tip over. But whatever. So they pick out these little things about you. They tear you apart and tell you why you're not good enough. So that definitely didn't help with my self-esteem because I took it personally. Validation. Now let me go with the creepy. The creepy, listen, there are a lot of people, I'm not just gonna say men, that wanna take pictures of you because they're weird. But I didn't know that. I thought that everybody, whatever they said, they were valid. Like, I'm a photographer and I would like to put you in this magazine. You are the most beautiful model I've ever seen. So someone with low self-esteem is gonna be like, really? Oh my gosh, yeah, okay, cool. Oh, we're doing it at your house? I don't know. And I would still go. But then I started noticing red flags, right? If they don't want my husband to come with me, that's a red flag. If they tell me to send them pictures before the shoot of me in my bathing suit or my underwear, that's a red flag. So I started noticing a pattern. You can't believe everything that everybody tells you, right? Especially with modeling. Validation. I had a lot of terrible ghetto gigs and fashion shows with like 5 models at hotels. Yes, the creepiness. But after a while, after I started getting more reputable gigs, and I actually signed with an agency, Seattle Models Guild, then that's when I started getting the validation, right, that I was seeking from my husband that I didn't get, and from my parents. So I kept doing it. Even if it was toxic, even if it was time consuming, even if it was demeaning, I was getting the validation. Phony baloney. Listen, I did those model calls, you know, where they're like, it's a modeling convention. All you gotta do is pay us $600 and you could probably be a model. And I believed all of it. And so I would like scrounge up my little pennies. I would work 2 jobs just to pay for these little modeling things. And no surprise, I would get absolutely nowhere. Knowing my worth. So after going through all of that, I realized I didn't have to accept every modeling gig that came my way that was just for free or for exposure. Baby, I can't pay my bills off of exposure. You can go ahead and keep that. When it rains, it pours. So around 2012, my mom passed away from breast cancer. She had a lot of other things going on, diabetes. She smoked cigarettes, but told everybody she didn't smoke cigarettes, including the doctor. And she passed away. So I felt a little bit of guilt there, right? Because I ran away, got married at 19, didn't want to deal with it. I wasn't around her until we moved back, and then by then it was too late. Betrayal. Yeah, I got his face right here. So I had been dealing with, in my marriage, I mean, and we were young. I'll give him credit there. We were young. Who gets married at 19? I did. I had been dealing with some infidelities, probably the entire relationship and marriage, until finally he got my coworker pregnant. So at that point, I had to ask myself, was it even worth it? Because we had my son by then, and I was like, a kid's gonna make everything better, right? It'll make us stay together, where death do us part. Bringing the religion back in there, right? Because God doesn't like divorce, is what I was told. But God actually, we had a little conversation, me and my guy, JC. And he was like, listen, if he's putting your health at risk, you may need to go in a different direction. So I was like, cool, appreciate it, my dude. And so those 2 things happened within 2 months of each other. And being in a small town, because we moved back to Athens, Tennessee, being in a small town, you cannot escape any of those things. You can go to Walmart and somebody be like, how old was your mom when she died? Did she suffer a lot? Are you and Travis still together? No? Yeah. How old's the baby? Yeah. How long did you know about it? And it got to the point to where I couldn't leave my home. I couldn't go to the grocery store without somebody asking me about it. I couldn't go to the gas station because word travels fast in a small town. So I had to make a decision. I talked to my best friend at the time, Tanisha, went to high school with her. And I'm complaining about it. I'm like, I hate it here, this is terrible. Like, everything's happening to me all at once. Like, I don't know what to do. She was like, why don't you just move? And she lived here in Northwest Arkansas. And I was like, I don't know. Like, I can't just upheave my life and take my 3-year-old son and move to Arkansas. And she said something that blew my mind. And she said, you can't heal in the same place that made you sick. Cool, enough said. So I took my 98 Volkswagen Beetle. Y'all, that thing was a death trap. It smelled like crayons and the windows didn't roll down. And I took a bag of clothes and my 3-year-old son. And I moved to Northwest Arkansas. I slept on my best friend's futon until I could get a job. And once I did get a job, I finally got a 1-bedroom apartment. I had a futon and a TV with a fatback. That is it. That is it. And I worked at Dillard's at the Fayetteville Mall. And that was an extremely rough time. I did not have any assistance financially except for my job. I had to pay for someone else to watch my kid. And as far as food, noodles. That's all I ate was noodles. I would put my son to sleep and go to the bathroom and cry because I felt like I wasn't being a good parent. I'm not providing for my child the way he should be provided for. So that was a extremely rough time. But I powered through, got a job at the radio station at Cumulus Broadcasting, finances increased, moved to a 2-bedroom, all right. No TV with the fat back, got me a Ford Fiesta, I don't want to brag. rolling pretty high now. And things got significantly better, especially when my son started going to school. You hear me? Because the daycare, baby girl. So old habits die hard. This is a little bit more recent. This is like this year. I had been struggling with female problems. I don't want to scare y'all, you know what I'm saying? Very heavy menstrual cycles, my whole life. But again, going back to drink water, drive on, going back to give it to God, those problems were just like, I'll just pray about it, right? Sure, I'm bleeding 90% of my blood every month. Sure, I can't walk up the stairs. Sure, I'm tired and exhausted and cold all the time. It's cool. I'm just getting old. I'm not working out enough. So I did that for probably about a couple months until my boss at Interform, Robin, was like, yo, you need to go to the doctor because you're on your period like every 2 or 3 weeks. I was like, no, I'm cool. Finally, I did go to the doctor, got some blood work done. And 4 days later, well, when I was at the doctor, they said, yeah, we need to go ahead and take your uterus out. I was like, cool, I'm not having any more kids anyway. Do whatever you need to do, research, whatever. Step on it, let me see it. But then they scheduled the surgery, but then they called me 3 days later and they were like, yo, you don't have enough blood to survive. You're like 3.4 was what my blood was. And I was like, oh, that explains why I was so tired. But the whole time I'm thinking, you're just being weak. And I would talk crazy to myself. There's some things that I wouldn't say to anybody because I would be so mean. I wouldn't say it to my son, but I'll say it to myself. I was like, you're being weak. You got a kid to take care of. You got a job to do. All this, you feeling tired, you're just getting old. You need to work out more. So I would work out more. Go to the gym at 4 a.m. every day. Couldn't make it up the stairs, but I was like, I'm just tired, right? I'm just old. They said, you have 1/10 the amount of blood that's supposed to be in a human. 1/10. I was like, oh, whoops. And so that military mindset finally gave me a kick in the pants. You can't keep going through life thinking that you just have to drink water and drive on, that you can't ask for help, and you can't talk crazy to yourself every single day. And that's what takes me to the mirror bully. That's who I was. That's your biggest bully. It's not like someone at school, it's yourself. How you talk to yourself in the mirror can do more damage than anything else. I was ignoring the signs. That was my health scare, and I ended up having an emergency hysterectomy in May. A little help from my friends. That's when I started learning that I have to accept help. Because before that, I didn't feel safe asking for help. I didn't want to be a burden on somebody else, right? Because people have their own lives. They don't have to take care of you because it's your fault. Again, talking crazy. Feelings aren't a weakness. So 3 brothers, no feelings, going back to that, right? Feelings are not a weakness, and I learned that. Because if you ignore your feelings, you might end up in the hospital, right? So the lessons I learned. There's a trouble with timelines. We put timelines on everything. That's part of the reason why I got married at 19, because I saw it as like a life accomplishment. If I got married, then that means my life is right on track, right? So I get to tell people, what are you up to, Ro? What's going on? Well, I'm married and I have a son, right? The happy parent I don't think I've ever really seen my parents happy. I've seen them stressed. I've seen them work hard. I've seen them tired, but I've never seen a happy parent. And I realized my son doesn't need a perfect parent that doesn't make any mistakes. My son needs a happy parent that he can learn from and learn to be happy. Hustle culture is a trap. Complete BS. I want to cuss so bad, but Regina told me not to. So I've been keeping it clean for y'all. It is total BS. It is what I was taught. I'm a millennial, you know what I'm saying? Like, I'm an old millennial. I'm 40. So we grew up like, you gotta work hard every day, you gotta work 2 jobs, you gotta earn your keep, earn your stripes. But that's total BS. You gotta rest. You don't deserve rest, you need rest. Let's get that straight. This whole deserve rest thing is like, you gotta do so much stuff for you to sit down? What? Do what? And then don't talk to you like that. That's what I was just saying. I was talking crazy to myself. You're just being weak. You need to work out. You're old. You're fat. You can't get any more modeling jobs if you're gonna have a gut. Stop talking to yourself like that. I have to unlearn and heal, and I'm still doing it. I'm not perfect. I make mistakes all the time. I have to unlearn certain behaviors. 2 things can be true. Your parents did the best that they could, but your parents did some damage. And it's cool to accept that. Nothing wrong with your parents. They're doing the best of what they got taught. But things are different, you know what I'm saying? And share and inspire. Like, I feel like I said at the beginning, people, it's great when you want to get up here and boast about, you know, the things that you have and the things that you've done. But I don't think people really learn from that. I think people learn from all the mistakes you made and how you made it past those mistakes and how you're still learning. Ain't nobody got all this stuff figured out. Trust me. But you can like share your story and inspire other people and create spaces for other people. Like, be that person that you needed when you was younger. And that's it. I appreciate y'all. Thank you.